YouTube and welcome back to my channel. Today is Vlogmas Day 8 and today I thought I would share one of my favorite holiday memories. So as I've mentioned in one of the past videos about how my family always kind of liked to make the holidays a special time of year for me, and they all started to get along and everything. And so there's a whole bunch of things that would happen in December that that I look back fondly on, and I thought I would share one of those stories today. So my grandmother, as I've mentioned, that she didn't really ever attend church services. I did go with my grandfather, but she and my mom just sometimes she'd come along, but most of the time she didn't. The only time she really got involved in the church was with the rummage sales and Christmas Bazaar. And a lot of times the Christmas Bazaar, she would do a lot of crafts. The kinds of things that you would see on Etsy today, she would actually make crafts, and all the proceeds from the Christmas Bazaar would go back to the church. So she was making all these things and, you know, not profiting at all from them, but she really enjoyed doing them. And I still remember a lot of the things that she would make. So I don't remember where she got the materials from, if they were donated to her to make these things, or if she went out and bought them. And considering at the level of poverty we were, I can't imagine her spending a lot of money on this stuff. I think these were things that were donated to the church that my grandmother would then take and transform into something that could be sold for the Christmas Bazaar. But I honestly don't remember where we got these things from. But she would make things like Christmas ornaments, first of all. So a lot of the styrofoam balls and things with lots of sequins and pins and ribbons, and she would make these fantastical Christmas ornaments that were very, very popular for sale at the Christmas Bazaar. And so that was definitely one thing that she would do is make these. And she'd also make them, I'm guessing, that she was able to keep some of them, or not all of them, sold or whatnot. And we gave them away as presents as well, because again, like I said, we didn't have a lot of money, so it was one thing she could make it and give it away as a present, and it was just a lot of fun. And I would obviously, as I got older and everything, and she let me go near the pins and needles, I would actually help make some of them. I mean, she came up with the design ideas and everything, and she would just tell me, okay, just, over here, put all the green sequins in, and then, stop when you're done, and then I'll tell you what color to go next or something. She'd always guide me in things. But it was a lot of just sitting in the living room on the couch next to each other with these styrofoam balls, and you have the pin, put it through we had little beads, put it through the bead first, and then through the sequin, and then into the styrofoam. And you needed the bead because it has a smaller hole, otherwise the head of the pin would go through the hole of the sequin. So you kind of needed both, plus it made the ornament more sparkly. And sometimes she'd have fancier pins with kind of like a elongated pearl head on the end of them, and she would make some rows with that, or she'd have a really bigger, fancier one that she would put on the end caps and things, and she'd have fancy ribbons and things on those. So those were a lot of fun. Another thing that she got really popular for was making Christmas trees. And these were also, it was a styrofoam, you'd take a styrofoam cone, and she would take pop bottle or beer caps that had been taken off the caps and everything. And my grandfather would help with these projects because we needed to have a nail driven through the pop cap before we could put it onto the styrofoam. So he would do that part for us, and then we would fill each cap with some glue and some glitter. Generally we did green glitter for the tree, and then on top of that we would glue a piece of old custom jewelry. For some reason the church got a lot of donations of jewelry, and the majority of it, if not all of it, was just this cheesy costume stuff that was basically worthless, but it was pretty and shiny and everything. And so they would give them to my grandmother, and they're like, here, make something with it. And so that's what she did. She glued them inside all of these caps, and then you'd have this, you know, and then we'd stick the caps with the nails in them onto this cone, on a styrofoam cone, and you end up with what looked like a really fancy Christmas tree, and it looked really pretty. And you wouldn't have even known those were pop bottle caps and everything. So those were really cool. And then one project that she always did that I did not help with, just because it was outside of my talent, skill, and interest, but she would get these packages of dolls. They were like, I don't know, about this big dolls, so they weren't full like Barbie-sized dolls, but they were like, so I think Barbie's like 12 inches tall, and I think these were like 8 inches tall, so they're a little smaller, but they were all women, naked. They had no clothes on, but you could get these in packs of 5 or 10 dolls in a pack all together, and she would make clothing for them. And she'd make all these fantastic outfits and everything. She would do like the German dirndls, but then she also did some that had like an Indian sari or a Japanese kimono or whatnot. I mean, we had a very diverse neighborhood that we lived in. I mean, it was the city of Chicago, and Chicago's a very diverse city, and we had a fairly diverse neighborhood of people with lots of different cultures and things, and her dolls ended up being very popular among a lot of people, because there were a lot of people who would come to the church Christmas Bazaar who were not members of our church. They were members of other churches, but we had a fairly well-attended bazaar every year, and people loved my grandmother's dolls because she had all of these wonderful different international costumes and things. And she was very careful about, I mean, one thing is that with the dolls, this was back in the 70s, all the dolls were white. They didn't have different skin tone dolls. They just didn't think of making them back in those days. And it was just part of the times, okay? It just wasn't available. But they did have lots of different hair colors. They had blonde hair, red hair, black hair, brown hair, etc. So she never put a kimono on a blonde doll. She always put them on a black-haired doll, that kind of thing. So while she couldn't do anything about the skin tone, she was always very culturally aware of which costume would work best with which hair color, if nothing else, because that was the only thing you could go by. And so that was, you know, that kind of sticks out in my mind now. It wasn't something I thought about when I was a kid, but looking back and remembering that now, I'm actually kind of proud of my grandmother, because she did have her Archie Bunker moments at times when it came to other cultures and things. And thankfully, I always looked at her like, wait a minute, what you talking about? Because my experience was very different from what she was talking about, and I'm like, wait, you just know. But a lot of her misconceptions were out of, you know, either complete naivete, or she was spouting something she heard from other people, and she just latched onto it and believed it and stuff. And so, and there was a lot of societal things going on and everything. But regardless, she showed a great amount of sensitivity in terms of the outfits that she made for these dolls, and they were very, very popular among a lot of people and things, and the folks from these different cultures who would buy them. I mean, I know there were a couple of families that were originally from India, and you know, like getting little dolls wearing a sari. You couldn't go. There wasn't a Barbie back in the 70s that wore a sari. I think there is now. I think there's more cultural awareness with dolls and things, and they're making more international styles for dolls. But back in the 70s, nope, all the Barbies kind of wore just American Western clothing. So it was kind of cool to see these people being able to buy dolls with their cultural representation for their children to play with. So that's actually kind of a cool thing. And I did not help with those because and one thing to note, because my grandmother did a lot of sewing, she did not own a sewing machine. I don't think she ever knew how to use one. In fact, I think sewing machines made her nervous. I know they make me nervous. The whole automatic needle going in there and the accidentally getting your finger caught in there or something. The whole concept terrifies me, so I would never go near them. And my grandmother was so good at stitching, and she would you would not be able to tell the difference between her stitching and a sewing machine. I swear. I mean, she was that precise. And I'm not. I'm a sloppy sewer. But she also spent years doing, that's another thing she would do every holidays. Every holiday she would make a new holiday ornament or decoration for the house. And back in those days you could buy these kits that were, they were felt, and they came with all these sequins and pins and needles and things. And you, no, not pins, no pins, but thread. So you do needle and thread, and you would sew all these little felt pieces and attach them with sequins onto this whatever it was. Sometimes it was the shape of a boot, sometimes it was just a banner that would have a wooden rod through at the top, and you'd hang it with that. I mean, there was all sorts of different kinds of styles and designs and things, and every year she'd make a new one, and that would get added to our Christmas decorations. So by the point I was like kind of middle school, high school age, we had like several walls full of these things. Latch hooking was another one of the many projects. Now, she wouldn't necessarily do that for Christmas, though. That would be something she'd be working on throughout the year. And at one point, and I was going to say at 1 year, but no, this actually took like 3 or 4 years. She got a latch hook rug. It was like a Persian rug, and it was literally, it was huge. I couldn't tell you the exact dimensions, but it was the size of a full rug, and it was like the pattern like a Persian rug, and so it was a very complicated pattern. And she spent, like I said, a good 3 or 4 years latch hooking this darn thing. And then when it was done, it was absolutely gorgeous. And she was like, no one's walking on this thing, so she actually hung it up on the wall. So it decorated one of our walls. I have no idea whatever happened to any of those things. I mean, for the Christmas decorations, most of those went to the Christmas Bazaar or were sold or were given away as gifts, so I don't have any of those. My grandmother just never really kept most of those. Or she just, over the years, because things will fall apart, glue will disintegrate and whatnot, and so she just, as they deteriorated, she would just toss them out. So just a lot of those things just didn't survive much past like 10 or 15 years. And then with all the felt stuff, I know after I moved to Colorado, my grandmother moved into an apartment complex and had all of her stuffs in storage, and the storage locker got broken into and everything got stolen. So I'm thinking a lot of those things just disappeared. So it's a shame. I don't really have the memories of these things. And there are lots of photos. I've just never scanned them in. Maybe next year I'll scan them in and show folks and stuff. But anyway, yeah, so sitting around with my grandmother poking sequins into styrofoam balls or watching her make all these creations and things. That was part of the holidays for me, and I really enjoyed it. It was very, very relaxing, very calm, very zen type of activity that you can just sit and you can have a conversation and do this at the same time. And I don't know, I just always enjoyed that. And I actually still do that kind of thing once in a while during the holidays if I'm not working on some other project. One of my favorite things to do is actually to take apples and cloves and fill the entire apple with cloves. The apple eventually dries out, but the cloves act in some way of preserving the apple. So instead of the apple going moldy or anything, it just kind of dries out in the cloves. And so over time, they actually get really, really light. I think it takes about 6 months for it to completely dry out, but they'll go from having like the regular weight of an apple to being just really, really light, and you wouldn't even know that it's a real apple in there. And the whole thing kind of shrinks in so that all of the cloves get really compacted and stuff. You usually have to make those anywhere from 6 months to a year ahead of time in order to have a proper ornament. But they're a lot of fun to make, and they smell really nice. And I had an entire bowl full of them at one point, but unfortunately my husband, he didn't, the smell of the cloves would make him sneeze, so I think it was an allergic reaction or something. So I ended up having to pack them away, and they kind of got crushed at one point during one of the moves, so I kind of lost them all. At some point I need to make more. So I'm not planning on doing that this year, but maybe next year I'll start working on some more of those, because it is a fun little project to work on. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little holiday story, and I'll be back for more Vlogmas. I'll be back for more Vlogmas tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.